Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really diving deep into the world of brain tumors, specifically a type called meningioma.
Okay.
You've sent us some research on
Yeah.
groundbreaking potential new ways to diagnose and understand these tumors, and honestly, I'm itching to unpack it all.
It's certainly a fascinating area of research, yeah.
Now, these tumors can be a bit tricky, right?
Yeah.
They often appear less aggressive than they can be,
Absolutely.
and predicting their behavior is a challenge.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges with meningiomas is that they often look benign under the microscope, but there's always a chance of recurrence.
And that's where this research comes in.
Yeah.
Introducing this idea of using biomarkers.
Right.
For anyone who hasn't encountered that term before, could you give us a quick rundown of what a biomarker is and why it matters in this context?
Sure. A biomarker is kind of like a calling card, a molecular clue that gives us insights into what's happening within the body. In this case, these researchers are investigating whether a family of molecules called somatostatin receptors, or SSTRs, could be reliable biomarkers for meningiomas.
Okay, so instead of relying solely on visual examination of the tumor, which has its limitations, these SSTRs could offer a more objective way to predict how a tumor might behave.
Exactly.
Kind of like having a peek under the hood before deciding how to proceed.
Exactly. Right now, doctors rely heavily on examining tumor samples under a microscope to determine the tumor grade, which helps predict its behavior. But this method can be subjective. Biomarkers like SSTRs could provide a more standardized and reliable measure, which could be a real game changer for diagnosis and treatment.
I'm curious about the research itself.
Yeah.
What did they actually do to figure out if these SSTRs were linked to meningiomas?
They analyzed tumor samples from 162 patients with meningiomas, looking for the presence of 5 different types of SSTRs. To do this, they used both traditional methods of examining the tumor samples and a really cool high-tech digital analysis technique.
Hold on, digital analysis of tumors.
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly futuristic.
It is.
What does that entail?
It's pretty amazing. They essentially scan the tumor sample and have a computer program analyze the images, looking for very specific features and patterns. In this case, the digital analysis helped quantify the levels of those SSTRs in each tumor sample with incredible precision.
So they were able to get a much more detailed and objective measurement of these SSTRs than with traditional methods.
Precisely. This digital scoring method offers a level of objectivity and reproducibility that's difficult to achieve with manual scoring. It's a great example of how technology is changing the landscape of medical research.
So did they find these SSTRs in the tumor samples?
They did. In fact, they found that most of the meningiomas had high levels of 3 SSTRs in particular: SSTR1, SSTR2, and SSTR5. Interestingly, another one, SSTR4, was virtually absent in the tumor samples.
So 3 out of the 5 SSTRs were present in significant amounts. Does this difference in expression, meaning how much of these SSTRs are present, potentially tell us anything about the tumor itself? Could it be a clue as to which tumors are more likely to be aggressive or come back?
That's the million-dollar question, and this is where the findings get really interesting. They discovered that these 3 SSTRs, 1, 2, and 5, were even more common in the more aggressive type of meningioma.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with the nuances of tumor grading, could you quickly explain what makes a meningioma more aggressive?
Of course. Meningiomas are classified using the WHO grading system, which basically tells us how likely a tumor is to grow quickly and spread. A higher grade means a more aggressive tumor. In this study, they found higher levels of those 3 SSTRs in what we call WHO grade 2 meningiomas, which are more likely to recur than lower grade tumors.
So that really strengthens the idea that these SSTRs could be valuable biomarkers for predicting tumor behavior. Did the research uncover anything else about how these SSTRs might be influencing what's happening within the tumor itself?
Indeed. They found that certain SSTRs were also linked to other tumor characteristics. Specifically the presence of something called necrosis.
Necrosis, that doesn't sound like a good thing.
You're right. It's not a good sign. Necrosis basically means cell death. And in a tumor, it often points to more aggressive behavior. The fact that they found this connection between specific SSTRs and necrosis suggests these molecules could be involved in how the tumor grows and affects the surrounding brain tissue.
Wow, so these SSTRs could be like puzzle pieces, helping us understand not just how aggressive a tumor is, but also how it's actually behaving on a cellular level. This is all incredibly promising from a diagnostic standpoint, but I'm also wondering about the treatment implications here. We've been talking about SSTRs as biomarkers.
Right.
But could these findings also point towards new treatment strategies for meningiomas?
You're thinking ahead, and that's exactly where this research gets even more exciting.
This is where it gets really interesting, right?
Yes.
Lay it on us.
What we know about SSTRs is that at the cellular level, some of them can actually hinder or even destroy tumor cells.
So the very molecules that are abundant in these tumors could potentially be harnessed to fight them. That's incredible.
It is.
It's like finding out the enemy has a secret weakness we can exploit.
That's a great way to put it. And what's even more promising is that some experimental treatments are already being explored that specifically target these molecules.
Wow.
This research lends even more weight to their potential, particularly for treating meningiomas.
So if I'm following correctly, we're looking at a potential 2-for-1 deal here.
Yeah.
SSTRs could become valuable tools for diagnosing and predicting the behavior of meningiomas. And they could be the key to developing new targeted treatments.
You've hit the nail on the head. This research has opened up a really exciting avenue for both diagnosing and treating these tumors.
But as with any promising research, I'm sure there are still hurdles to overcome before we see SSTRs being used in clinical practice.
Sure.
What are some of the next steps that need to happen to bring these findings from the lab to the patients who need them?
You're absolutely right. We can't jump ahead of ourselves.
Right.
This research is incredibly promising, but it's still early days.
Right.
To really confirm these findings and unlock the full potential of SSTRs, we need more research.
Okay.
Particularly larger studies with more patients.
Okay.
This will help us solidify the link between SSTRs and tumor behavior.
And of course, larger studies also help us rule out that these findings aren't just a fluke, right?
Exactly. Robust scientific evidence requires that we see these results replicated in different groups of patients. And just as importantly, we need to figure out what these different levels of SSTRs actually mean when it comes to making real-world treatment decisions.
It's one thing to spot a pattern.
Yeah.
But another entirely to know what that pattern means for how we treat a patient.
Precisely. We need more research to determine the best ways to use SSTR information to guide treatment decisions and develop therapies that are both safe and effective.
So lots more work to be done, but incredibly exciting progress. Now let's shift gears a little and talk about the bigger picture here.
Yeah, okay.
This research focused on meningiomas, but are there any broader implications for the field of cancer research as a whole? Could these findings have implications for other types of tumors?
That's a great question. And it speaks to the interconnected nature of scientific discovery. While this research focused specifically on meningiomas, it has the potential to open doors for understanding other types of tumors as well.
I imagine this kind of research sends ripples through the scientific community,
Yeah.
sparking new ideas and research directions.
Absolutely. The discovery of potential biomarkers like SSTRs is always exciting because it gives us new avenues to explore.
Right.
While it's too early to say for sure if SSTRs will play a role in other types of cancer, this research lays the groundwork for future investigations.
This is where I love to geek out a little and think about the what-ifs.
Okay.
Imagine if we could not only use SSTRs as biomarkers, but actually manipulate their levels within the body. Could we potentially boost the good SSTRs and block the bad ones?
Yeah, you're talking. That's the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that leads to real breakthroughs.
Yeah.
It's certainly a tantalizing possibility. Right now, SSTR-targeted treatments are still in the experimental phase.
Okay.
But this research really strengthens their potential. It's possible that in the future, we'll be able to develop therapies that either boost or block SSTR activity depending on the specific needs of the patient.
That would be revolutionary. Imagine a world where we could essentially reprogram the body to fight off tumors by manipulating these molecular switches.
Right.
The possibilities are mind-boggling.
It's definitely an exciting frontier in cancer research, and this study has provided some valuable pieces to the puzzle.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of meningiomas and the potential of SSTRs. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure our listeners are walking away with the key takeaways. We've learned that SSTRs show real promise as potential biomarkers for meningiomas. They could give us a clearer picture of how aggressive a tumor is and might even help predict if it's likely to come back after treatment. Plus, scientists are already looking at ways to target these very molecules to develop new treatments.
That's a great summary. It's also important to remember that this research is ongoing.
Right.
While the findings are promising, more research is needed before we see SSTR-based diagnostics or treatments in the clinic.
So this is definitely a story to watch with the potential to change the game for how we diagnose and treat meningiomas in the future. To leave your listener with a final thought, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about the interconnected nature of scientific discovery. This research could have implications beyond meningiomas.
Absolutely. This research reminds us that every scientific discovery, no matter how specific, can have ripple effects across different fields. While it's too early to say for sure what the long-term impact of this research will be, it has the potential to spark new ideas and research directions, not just for meningiomas, but potentially for other types of tumors as well.
It's a great reminder that science is a constantly evolving process of discovery, and each new finding, like a single puzzle piece, can take us closer to a more complete understanding of complex diseases like cancer.
Well said. It's an exciting time to be following this field of research.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of meningioma research. And to our listener, we hope this has given you a glimpse into the cutting edge of medical discovery and the incredible potential of these molecular clues known as biomarkers. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.